Welcome back to The Book Stop. I'm so excited to talk about today's episode. Fair warning moving forward, this podcast does contain spoilers as we go over major events within the novels. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on Apple, Spotify, and Instagram at The Book Stop Podcast. A warm welcome to our guest. This is her first time on the show, so I'd like to welcome Dom.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. So Dom, what did you bring for us to talk about today?
The book Verity by Colleen Hoover.
This was definitely an interesting book, I will say. I don't normally do this, but I'm going to put this here. Just moving forward, I do want to put like a trigger warning because this book does talk about a lot of really sensitive topics. Like there's death, there's child abuse, there's, murder. So just keep that in mind when you're listening. If that stuff bothers you, I wouldn't recommend necessarily listening to this episode. But yeah, let's get into it. So Verity is a romantic thriller that was published in 2018. And I was looking at Colleen Hoover's page, and I didn't realize that she wrote so many books. I thought she was like a new upcoming author. And I also think that's really cool that she has a lot of background in social work. And I think that really shows in her books. I could definitely see like her background kind of like shining through in her writing. To get us started, we're going to play a little game. In 30 seconds or less, I want you to describe the plot of this book. But it's an autobiography about yourself. So I want you to tell it, but through like your eyes, like how you were feeling during it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it is.
You're gonna be like, so Dom read this book and Dom thought. Okay, so you have 30 seconds to describe this book beginning now.
Okay, so Dom thought when she first read the book, the first couple of pages were completely horrifying and she didn't want to finish it. It's a very graphic intro, but I kind of like stuck through it. And then it kind of talks about this girl who is a very poor author, and her mom just died. And she gets offered this job by this guy named Jeremy, whose wife just happened to be in a freak accident and is paralyzed and can't really think or talk.
That's okay.
Categories.
That was 30 seconds. You did good.
Sorry.
No, I liked it.
It's hard. It's a really hard book to like talk about in 30 seconds. There's just so much.
Oh yeah. That's why we're going to spend the next hour talking about it. So I'm just going to give a quick summary for anybody who hasn't read this book yet. So it tells the story of a husband of the famous novelist Verity, Crawford, who has hired a self-conscious writer to finish his wife's series after a fatal car accident that has left her brain dead. Lowen, the writer in question, arrives at the Crawford house and quickly realizes that their little family is not as it seems. She uncovers an autobiography that tells the deep and extremely disturbing life of Verity and her not-so-happy family. So, like you said, it's very dark. I found this book very compulsing, but also very repulsing, if you know what I mean. Like, I wanted to read it, but then I was like, some of these scenes, I'm like, I want to stop because they get so dark.
Yeah, but because we're human, we're curious. So when we have something horrible like that, we want to keep reading, and we're just like, how is this going to even end?
Exactly. It's like seeing a car accident.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And that kind of brings me into the beginning where literally the first sentence is Lowen sees this man that gets ran over by a car and dies in front of her. And it kind of like throws you into like the story itself and how Jeremy is the one that kind of pulls her off the street and gets her clean up. And that's just a very interesting and like weird way to know somebody, is because the very first interaction you have is because of this accident.
Yeah, and it just so happened to be that he was the one that was doing the interviewing for the job too.
Exactly, yeah, because she was on her way to go to an interview with her company, and it was with him, which it kind of stands by one statement that I've always believed is everything happens for a reason. And in this book, that's a big statement that it follows, is how, everything happens for a reason. And like Lowen is kind of the perfect victim for this story, because she's in debt, and, you know, Jeremy is coming towards her with this, what was it, like $1 million deal or something crazy like that to finish these books.
Yep, $500 to finish the series with 3 books.
$500?
500,000.
Okay. I was like, shoot. Not worth it. But yeah, to finish these 3 books that his wife couldn't finish, but, you know, she's in debt. She doesn't have any family. She has no respect for herself. And that really ties in later a lot with how she kind of views herself up compared to, like, Verity. So when you first, like, thought of her going to the house, what do you think was going to happen?
Honestly, I didn't know because the characters were still new, especially Jeremy. But you kind of want it to be like a happy ending. And I didn't know how Verity's mental, like how she was going to be, if she was going to be capable, and because technically she was supposed to be co-writing these books with her, and you know, she didn't know that she was not able to do that. So
right.
I kind of wanted it to be like a good ending where she became successful and Verity and her became friends. And
so you were going for like the complete opposite of what this book went.
Yeah, it's not at all like that.
See, I thought it was going to be like kind of like a murder plot deal. Jeremy was like going to draw her in and they were going to fall in love, and then they were going to, I don't know, almost like kill for sport and then write a book out of it. That's the vibe I was getting when I was reading this book. But, you know.
It's pretty graphic.
It's a very graphic, and we're going to get into it, but let's start out first with our favorite lines. What did you bring today?
Okay, so mine is like a couple sentences. It's from Verity. Oh, no, actually, this one is from Jeremy. So it says, some families are lucky enough to never experience a single tragedy, but then there are those families that seem to have tragedies waiting in the back burner. What can go wrong goes wrong, and then it gets worse.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a pretty good one because it pretty much sums up the whole book.
Yeah, that's a really good line. I like that one too. Basically what happened in the course of, like, I would say probably less than a year, was their twin daughters die. One has a peanut allergy and the other one drowns in a lake. And then Verity ends up in the car accident that leaves her brain dead. And, you know, all of these things happen one after one after one. So I can see where, like, Jeremy is coming from with that aspect and that, you know, that thinking. So, yeah, my line was from Lowen, and it was towards the end of the book, and it's natural to assume the worst in someone, even if it's only for a few seconds. When I was thinking of that line, it's like, you know, you always want to see the good in people, but you also can't be that, like, person that, like, only sees the good in people, because then I feel like if you see the bad, then you feel, I guess, less tricked in the way. When something bad does happen, you can't just be like, well, I didn't see that coming. So, and I think it's also interesting because this is Lowen speaking, and the way that she, like the biggest one is Jeremy. Like, I don't think I ever saw anything bad about, in her point of view of Jeremy. He was always like God tier to him.
No, that's
or to
true,
her.
yeah.
So I think it's funny that she says that because it's aimed at Verity in the book, but I feel like to any of the characters, she should have done that more. I mean, she literally goes to his house and lives in his house for, I want to say, like a month, 2 months.
Yeah, it was a long period of time.
Yeah, for a man she never met.
Yeah.
And all of this stuff goes down.
Yeah, I liked that. That one was a good one too, because it showed, like, her character development towards the end too, and how the way she saw things. So there was one that was by Verity that I was kind of like, that kind of makes sense on how her relationship with Jeremy was so twisted and not very healthy. When she says, like, I was different, an emotionally challenging puzzle he wasn't up for solving, which was fine. I wasn't in the mood to be solved. So it kind of seems like she never really wanted to fix any of their problems. She would always kind of manipulate him with, like, I don't know, like, sexual stuff, or try to just brush stuff under the rug. So that kind of shows that the relationship was really, really rocky. It wasn't really even, I wouldn't call it like love. It was more of just like a lust.
See, this is a thing. Okay. To jump into it. I will say I did like this book in the sense that I like the writing style of this book, and I like the way that she was with one character and then she jumped to because she was with Lowen, was like the main character, and then she jumped to Verity in the autobiography sense where Lowen is reading Verity through her autobiography that she wrote and hid in her house. And this autobiography is telling the story of the relationship between Jeremy and Verity and how awful it was in the sense that they weren't good for each other. And that, like you said, they were basically like living off of lust the whole time.
Mm-hmm. And she became so envious. Like, she just only wanted him to herself and like did these horrible things to her kids.
Yeah, she got very jealous.
I honestly a couple times wanted to throw up because I couldn't even imagine like a mother doing those things to her children.
Yeah, I told you this was the first book that I've ever felt physically towards, like physically ill towards, or physically like anything towards. And I will say it was an interesting new aspect that I've never had with a book. So it was cool to kind of experience that. So my first question is, okay, I want to go straight to the end because that was the part that really was like bothered me a lot. So like I said, there was autobiographies that Verity wrote and hid in the house, and it's telling the story of when Jeremy and them met up till present day, before she got in the car accident. And in the autobiography, like you said, very raw and very, what's the word I want?
She uses like a villainous perspective.
Yes, like a very antagonist point of view. And you find out at the end, like I said, this is a romance thriller too. So there's a lot of suspenseful parts where Lowen figures out that Verity is actually faking being brain dead. And she's faking it because she misses Jeremy being in love with her and loving her more than the kids that they had. So she tells at the end of the story, she's saying that the autobiographies are all lies and that she wrote in a negative point of view because this is what her editor told her to do.
Yeah.
As a writing experience that got her books so popular was to write from an antagonist point of view. So she told her to write that way in her own life to get more like out of her writer's block. So my question is, when Lowen found the letter at the end, after everything that happened with Verity, which we're going to talk about in a second, but after everything that happens, Lowen finds the letter in the floorboard when they move later, and it's basically stating, none of that was true. I was lying, for my books, and I don't really know who to believe. I don't know if I should believe the autobiographies. Were they all true and she got caught, so she was making this letter to lie, or was the letter true? And the autobiographies, were just a writing technique.
Right, like you're kind of left with this horrible cliffhanger because,
yeah,
even for Lo, like, she doesn't even show anyone that letter. She's like, I'm just gonna, she's pregnant, so she's like, I'm just gonna rip this up and
eat it. She ate the words. She ate the words, and I kept thinking, she's pregnant. That can't be good for the baby.
No, I know, that was definitely a really weird ending, but
yeah,
that's what leaves everybody. I don't know, I was super upset and so conflicted with the ending because you don't expect that, and then because like the way that she died was kind of, so like in the autobiography that she wrote, she talked about how she wanted to kill Harper, her baby, the one that has Asperger's, and the way she was doing it was she stuck her fingers down the baby's throat to try to make it look like an accident, which is ironic because that's the way that she ended up dying, because Jeremy did it to her. And he read the autobiography, It was just it was just brutal. It was a really horrible way to die.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm confused about, because so yeah, Jeremy finds the autobiography, reads all of this awful stuff that Verity did to their kids, and he is just overcome with rage, and he goes up there and he figures out that Verity is lying because there's like evidence that she's moving around and stuff. And yeah, I personally didn't like the ending because I felt like there was too many plot twists. There was Jeremy already knowing about the autobiography, and yet still is like overcome with rage, so he goes up and kills his wife. And then there's also the plot twist of her not being brain dead. And then there's also the plot twist of, because Jeremy already read the things before, he's actually the one that caused the accident that made Verity
disabled
and fall into this like brain dead plot scheme, I guess you could say. And so I don't know, I just think it was too much all at once at the end, and I don't know if it just didn't play out very well, I think, for everything to happen all at once.
Yeah, and I have so many questions, like why. First of all, if you're a nurse, how do you not know if somebody's, like...
Right.
How are you not going to know that somebody's, like, faking something like that? I don't know. Unless she's really, really good at it. I don't know. To me, that just doesn't make sense. Idea.
Yeah, me either.
Or the fact where it was funny when she's like, she was so surprised. She's like, oh, you know, we were shocked when I found out I was pregnant. It's like, well, you guys definitely did it a couple times, and you guys didn't use protection.
Exactly.
And she's like, yeah, I'm not on birth control, but then she became pregnant.
Exactly. That's another thing I want to talk about is her pregnancies.
Right.
And how much she hated
her kids.
The thought of being pregnant and her kids, because it took the love of Jeremy from her. And, you know, she got pregnant the first time with the twins, and she actually tried to do her own abortion for them, and it left a scar on one of their faces. And she only liked being pregnant for the sense of Jeremy waiting on her hand and foot all day, and that's why they ended up having another child, Crew, which is their younger child. So I just think it's crazy, and then like when they were born, how jealous she was of them, so she tried to kill them again, like you said.
Yeah, she was a horrible mother. She would it would talk about how when Jeremy would leave for work, she would unplug the baby monitor so she wouldn't hear them cry, and she would sleep all day, and then she'd set an alarm just so like right before he got home, she would make it look like, you know, she got dinner ready, the kids were bathed and fed. Like, she's this Wonder Woman, and then she would stay up all night and work on her writings. Essentially, she was very selfish.
Extremely selfish. But at the same time, was any of that true? That's the thing I don't like.
See, but then you think about it, though, because in the autobiography, there were so many true things that, like, happened. Like, with the red dress, she was wearing the red dress when they first met, and...
Yeah, but she said in her story that she stole it, but in real life, it was hers.
Yeah.
So it's like... In a sense, some of it's true and some of it's false, and there's no way of telling which one's which.
Yeah, that is true. That's why it's so confusing to, like, at the end of the book, you're just kind of like, I have no idea who's, like, the good person or bad person. Was an innocent life taken, or...
Exactly.
It's horrible. And you don't know if she killed her daughter, if she, like, purposely... And we don't know, because, you know, there's that part where... towards the end of the book, Jeremy asks his 5-year-old son, Crew, you know, did Mom tell you to hold your breath when the canoe fell?
Mm-hmm. A little background. So one of the twins have already died. And, you know, this is the one that she liked out of the twins, which is already messed up to have one favorite child. But to the point where she wants to kill the other one, that's where it's bad. But, yeah, one has already passed for... few months now, and every time she sees Harper, she just gets angry. So she's like, you know, let's go out to the lake and let's get in the boat. No life jackets, nothing. Canoes out to the middle of the lake and says to Crew, she's like, hold your breath. And then she tips the boat over, and Harper gets stuck in the fishing net that Jeremy lost last year or something. And that scene was very, I guess seeing it from Verity's point of view is very compelling in the way that she was faking how good of a mother she was. Like, how she was going out and saying, like, she screamed, all of this stuff, so...
It's crazy because even, like, Prue was probably 4 at the time, but he was, you know, screaming for her to go back for the sister.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, I tried. And she, like, tells him to go inside to go get, you know, to call Dad or call 911. And meanwhile, she's just, like, waiting around until someone comes out, and then she looks for her daughter. But she, like, says that her thought process was she was really she's like, it's a good thing I don't hear... She didn't hear, like, the waves moving or the water moving or anything, so she kind of knew her daughter had already drowned.
Yeah, she even said, like, I didn't go too far out in the water just in case my leg, like, brushed up against hers or something.
Yeah. Oh,
so, yeah, it's a very dark... That's not even the darkest scene, either.
No, it's not.
It's one of the darkest scenes, but I don't think it was the darkest one. The one that got me was the one we talked about earlier where she tried to suffocate her daughter. That's the one that made me like, oh.
I know. I was even, when it talked about how she took, like, the wire hanger and, like, was trying to abort her kids that way in the bathroom, and she quickly went back in the bed so she could be next to Jeremy, and then she was...
When it happened.
Yeah, so she could pretend like it was a miscarriage. That made me sick. I was like, I don't know if I can finish this.
Yeah. And then, like, that's another thing that ties in with, like, what was real and what wasn't, because Chastity was born with the scar. Mm-hmm. So, was that real? I know they try to play it off as, like, this rare thing that happens and...
Yeah, with fibrous tissue or something.
Something like that, yeah. I think it's funny that Verity, the word itself literally means truth. I think that's a very well play on words. I think they did a good job on that.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that.
So who was your favorite character?
Honestly,
a lot of options, I know.
No, there's like 4 people throughout the whole book. But I don't know. I think the most interesting for me is probably Crew, the 5-year-old son. I mean, because Lo, to me, she doesn't really seem like... To me, she doesn't seem really as significant. She's just kind of telling the Verity's story through her eyes, you know? And then Verity's like a vegetable throughout the whole book, except for like 2 pages. And then Jeremy's just this attractive figure. So I think Crew, because he knows, I feel like he knows so much, and he doesn't tell us. Like, he literally bit down on a knife when he was asked questions
about his mom.
Yeah, so, and then his mouth bled and he had to get stitches. Like, he's a true version of, like, snitches get stitches, and he's like, I'm not telling nobody.
Exactly. Yeah, I also put Crew down because he has a lot of potential, as in, like, if there was a sequel, I would love a sequel on him.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, like how you said, he really kind of tied in that thriller aspect of the story with how, like, he kept saying, like, well, mommy says, like, don't say anything about her, and, like, mommy said to do this, and at first he kind of played off as, like, a child, you know, trying to interact with his mom that's not there, but the more you kind of see, like, clues of her being not brain dead, it becomes more and more scarier. So, yeah, I really like Crew. I thought he was very cute.
He is
little
cute.
Dr. Pepper and his little turtles.
He's a cutie.
To go back to, like, Lowen, I thought that she had a lot of potential. I think they could have done a little bit better on her, because she was very, like, generic writer that doesn't have any self-esteem, that, you know, can't even put her book out there without feeling self-conscious that someone's not gonna like it. And she cared about her mom to a point where, until she passed, and then she had no one. And I don't know, I just wish and she was in love with her editor. Like, her world was very small, and I would have liked to see a little bit more with her. And I think one interesting fact that they tried to do with her was the sleepwalking, and how when she was younger, she used to sleepwalk to the point where it actually physically harmed her, and they had to put locks on her door. And I feel like that could have been played a little bit better.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you only get, like, a small glimpse of her past, and where she fractured her wrist or something. She was bleeding, and she woke up with, like, dirt in her bed and, like, blood on her hand. And then it talked about how her mom was scared of her, so she had locks on her door. Mm-hmm. But I do like, because I liked that aspect, how they brought that into the story, because then it brought in the creepy things that happened when because just to protect the rest of the house, Lo felt more comfortable with Jeremy putting locks on the outside of the door. So the one night when Jeremy and her were, doing their thing, and they didn't lock Verity's door, but they got locked in, and it kind of, they think, oh my god, was it Verity that locked us in?
Yeah, it made the paranoia spike so much more.
Right. And it, and then she had that anxiety, and he had to break through the window to get them out. It's like there's so many things. And then she would take Xanax, and like for a couple of the times when she thought that, Verity was where she was seeing things, she would blame it like maybe on the Xanax. Mm-hmm. But then she was like, no, this is really, especially when she's seen her like gripping, like when she's physically seen Verity gripping the railings of the staircase looking down when she was making out with Verity's husband.
Yeah. This would be better as a movie. I feel like you get a better sense of that creepiness from Verity. I feel like if you get a really good director, make it into a horror film, it would be really well.
Oh yeah,
well
that's
done.
True. That's true.
Romance thriller.
Yeah, because I love romance books. I love those sappy, annoying endings.
I know.
That's why. No, you know what's funny is this is nowhere near my comfort zone, but.
Exactly. When you sent me this book, I was like, what? This is not Dom's style at all. I'm excited, but I was expecting like Safe Haven or anything else that.
I know, anything else. Department. Well, that's the thing is because there were so many. This book took me longer to read because I kept putting it down because I would get so scared. I couldn't read this at nighttime because I kept thinking that there was something like watching me or like looking, especially when she talks about how like this paralyzed woman and she is staring at her and she's not able to turn her neck normally, or like when Crue's waving at the window and the blinds are shut, or when the TV randomly mutes itself and she's watching it. Like those things don't just happen. So I'm like...
Exactly. Yeah, I think like I said, I really like Colleen Hoover's writing style. I think she writes really well. I think the ending just needs a little bit more work.
Yeah.
It just felt very rushed.
Yeah, it was cut so short.
Yeah. So one question I do have. So if Verity wrote this autobiography in the point of view of a antagonist, why didn't she just tell Jeremy at the beginning? Instead of hiding the autobiography, just be like, I wrote this, none of this is real. I wrote this because it helps me, because the books that she writes and sells are from the antagonist's point of view. So it would make complete sense.
Yeah, but he only read one of her books, because he said he didn't want to be in her mind space.
Right.
But I don't know, that's one of the things, like towards the end of the book, it talks about when she says... In that letter, she says, you weren't paying attention when we were at that meeting, when the editor was like, hey, I really think you should, be the antagonist and, write an autobiography as an antagonist view. And he wasn't paying attention. He was on his phone. But then she mentions, but I still love you and all that stuff. But maybe, and we don't know if that's true or not. So that's the thing that's, like, really frustrating is we seriously don't know if she was just trying to cover her butt up towards the end with that letter.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just frustrating because you don't know, like we've been saying, what is real and what is fake. You don't know which part of it is. I guess you can kind of choose, like, do you want to believe her? Or, like, do you want to, like, say that her death was unjustified? Or do you want to believe what she wrote in the works? So... it's definitely a mind boggler. Yeah,
this whole book is just like a roller coaster. Like, it's insane. There's not one moment where I was like, oh, I expected that to happen.
Yeah, exactly. No. I kept thinking, okay, this is gonna happen, and then it didn't. Like the big one was the murder plot, where they were like drawing people in, and then they just ended up murdering them. But that didn't happen.
Right.
I had a sense that Verity was faking it because it was a thriller. So I was like, obviously something's got to play out here, but...
Yeah, and I had, like, hopes, because you know how I want to be positive that the ending's going to be this sappy romance, ending.
Mm-hmm.
And when Verity started to talk about how she had that dream. So the first time she ever felt like any sort of love towards her children was around 6 months, when they were like, the twins were 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And she had that dream about Harper, the one she doesn't like, the one that has
Asperger's?
She has Asperger's. And she had this dream that Harper killed Chastity. And she, like, wakes up and she's crying, you know. And that's where she realizes that she doesn't want Chastity to be taken away from her. And she's like, I have to put all my love into Chastity. So then I get excited because I'm like, oh, maybe she's going to, like, be a good mother. And but she ends up favoriting one child. Mm-hmm. And then she ends up putting the other one in the back burner. And you can kind of see that when she literally blames this 8-year-old for the reason that Chastity died. You know, she says, Harper, it was your fault, because they went to the sleepover, and then the girls got into snacks after midnight, and Chastity has this horrible peanut allergy, and it's not right to blame a child like that. Obviously they didn't know, but it's just really sad. I really had high hopes that she was going to be a good mom, but that didn't happen.
That kind of ties in with, like, again, what was real and what was fake, because that was real. Like, her daughter did die from a peanut allergy, and the other one did die in a lake, but how much of a hand Verity had in it, that's the part that we kind of have to, like, piece together ourselves and kind of write it how we want it to be written. So, but yeah, and then, like you said, like, how she started to favor one of them more than the other, and Jeremy noticed, and he called her out on it. And wasn't that when they ended up getting pregnant again?
Yeah, she, like, didn't want him to be mad, and she knew that the only way she realized that he loved her the most when she was pregnant, and so she covered it up, and she's like, oh, we're expecting another child, and then he was like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to get so upset with you.
Yeah.
Like, it's horrible relationship skills.
Yeah. Speaking of relationships, what is your favorite relationship in this book?
I think the relationship between Jeremy and Crew is because he's so protective over Crew. He's such a good father figure, and he's protective of Crew, but wants him to, he really sincerely, after everything that happened, he wants him to be okay in the end, because this is so traumatic for anyone to go through, let alone a 5-year-old. So, you know, he puts him through therapy, makes sure that he's okay. And he even sleeps with him if he gets scared, and he's always there when he wakes up. He, like, the first thing, even if he's comforting Lo in the moment, he says, I can't stay long, I have to make sure Crew has me when I wake up.
Yeah. So
he's, like, a very good father to him.
I definitely agree. I think one of my favorite scenes with Crew and Jeremy was when, you know, it was right after Harper's death, and they were all sleeping in the same bed, and Jeremy is questioning Verity, and he asks, why did you tell Crew to hold his breath? And she's like, you know, it was right before the canoe tip over. I thought Harper would be okay because she's older, so I wanted to make sure Crew was okay. And, you know, he just sits there and he's like thinking, and then he lets go of Verity, and he turns around and covers Crew with his body pretty much. Mm-hmm. You know, that just kind of, like, symbolizes right there, like, nothing's going to be more important to him than Crew in that moment. So, yeah. I 100%. I really like their relationship. I went, you know, basic. And I said my favorite relationship was Crew and the turtle in the backyard. I thought that was so cute. And then, like, how Jeremy, like, sets the aquarium up. Nothing happened. Did they ever get the turtle back? Because I know they released him. But I don't think they ever, like, went back and got him. So
I honestly don't remember. I just remember them going to get the fish tank in the basement. And
then they, like, cleaned it out, and then
it doesn't really tell us too much about the turtle after that.
Which is a crime in itself, because right. I would have said the turtle was my favorite character if they would have kept with it, but whatever.
I also liked the relationship between, it doesn't really talk too much about it, but Chastity and Harper, and it talks about how Jeremy mentions that Chastity was very protective and would have been a good mother had she grown up, because she was very protective of Harper. And then even when Crew was born, you know, she wanted to be there for Crew. So it kind of shows, even though she went through a lot, obviously, when she was born, with all the abortion trials and everything, she still turned out good.
Yeah, that was my second after the turtle and crew was the twins and like the kids all together, because I think they had a really special connection. So I kind of want to jump into the other relationships in the story though. One of the biggest relationships is, you know, Lowen and Jeremy end up getting together. And I can't say I 100% support this relationship. I think needed was I wanted to see more of Verity and Jeremy's relationships through Jeremy's eyes. Because you could see that they were growing apart physically, but I would have liked to see Jeremy kind of his point of view of how he kind of grew apart like mentally and emotionally. I felt like that would have been better to like get a feel of Lowen's relationship with Jeremy, because to me it felt like he was cheating. You know, even though he was brain dead, he was still a married man. He still had a wife. So, personally, I didn't love that aspect. But what is your thoughts on it?
I definitely see your point of view, too. We only get a glimpse of how he felt during the relationship during one conversation that they had when Lowen and him were outside, like, watching the stars. And he, like, mentioned that he was physically attracted to her. And wow, like, yeah, like, the sexual aspect was awesome. He didn't connect mentally or emotionally with her. And then, you know, she asked, have you ever connected with someone like that? And he, like, throws in there, yeah, I have, but I met her. Was it at the coffee shop that he, like, gave her the shirt?
Sure,
and
yeah.
Then she's like, it was like, he, like, threw that cheesy line in there that obviously he connected on all those levels with her. But he doesn't really elaborate on why they didn't. He said that he was hoping that that something would just click, like, because all the other, like, the sexual aspects, physical aspects were there, but the, you know, emotional and aspects weren't there. And he was hoping that one day it would just click because they had a family. And sometimes people just think that when they have kids that it will just get better. But I think in this case it got really worse for them.
Way worse, yeah. Absolutely. Especially because she was just having the kids to please him instead of actually wanting those kids. So, but yeah, I really wish there was just more from Jeremy. I would have liked to see more of his impact on the story. The only time you really see anything is at the very end when Jeremy literally kills his wife. That, you know, nothing happened. That's the thing. Okay, so yes, Jeremy kills his wife. He suffocates her and makes it look like that she passed away in her sleep. But I don't know, I still feel like something's gonna happen to him. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it was too easy looking at it from like a writer's point of view, I guess. It was a very good loophole to just be like, oh, okay, just suffocate her and let's just move out of this big house and start our own family.
Right, like he had the autobiographies and he even threatened her. That's why she ended up coming out of her fake coma. Like, she was like, oh shoot, I don't want to go to jail. And she like woke up and she's like, I had to. But when he should have just, I mean, if that was true, if the autobiography was true, then she obviously had the right mentality of freaking out like that. But if it wasn't true, you know, I don't know. I just feel like it wasn't, the ending did kind of suck.
Yeah, the ending really ruined it for me. It's the ending for me.
He could have taken her, I think she needs to be like in an insane asylum or something, because there was something off about how do you hide something like that and fake it and write something horrible things about your children like that.
Right. Like, making your own fictional world is different because I feel like you don't get as attached to them, but when they're your actual family members, it feels 10 times worse. I don't know, it feels more like mentally unstable than just, you know, trying to write a fiction story.
But we do kind of see like a little bit of why Verity is the way she is. Like, her family pretty much disowned her. They didn't want anything to do with her because of her writings. They think they were very religious, right? And they believed that she was like this demonic creature because she was writing in this antagonist view. And even when she died, like, Jeremy tried getting a hold of him, and, you know, what did the dad say? Something about like bad things happen to bad people or something. Like, he had no sympathy. he was like, that sucks. She had it coming or something like
Something
what?
like that, yeah.
Your mother something like
Something like that, yeah.
Your father or your mother don't say those things. So maybe, I mean, I'm not trying to cover up for the fact of how she supposedly treated her kids, but maybe you see that the way she is from her parents raising her, mom and dad.
I totally see where you're coming from, but I feel like with being in this relationship with Jeremy, it should not necessarily, I'm not saying it should fix her, but she should be able to see life through a different set of glasses, I guess you could say, or different lenses. And because he was a good man to her, that we saw in the autobiography, that is. Maybe that was a lie. Maybe he wasn't a good husband to her. We will never know.
Yeah, that is true. It doesn't really tell much about, like, it's just mainly we just see, like, the physical aspect of the relationship. Mm-hmm. Although it did say that, I mean, like, in the autobiography, we don't know what's true, so we don't know if it's false that she created this, like, perfect version of him, but it showed that he was so involved in the kids' lives. Like, he took care of them, and when she was pregnant, he would hold her hair when she would throw up, and mm-hmm. he would help for feeding them, and all that kind of stuff. It's just, I don't know, because if the autobiography is false, then we don't know, or maybe just certain parts of it are false. I don't know.
Yeah, we have no idea because Jeremy killed his wife, so
we'll never know.
We'll never know, and that's the frustrating thing about it, because, you know, we have this letter that they find after, so Lowen and Jeremy, you know, they end up getting married or together at the end, and they go to sell the big house that they lived in, and she finds the letter in the wooden floor of Verity's room, and like I said at the beginning, I don't know which part is real. Like, I don't know if the letter is real, and she was just trying to make up for herself. So if she did get, you know, thrown in jail, she did get found out, she gets thrown in jail, she has this letter to kind of back her up and be like, it's not real type deal.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder, because in that, like, little hole in the floor, there was the knife, the picture of the two girls, and mm-hmm. the letter. And you kind of wonder, what was that knife for? For, like, protection from her husband? Or, like, what? We know that was a knife that Crew got hurt with. Yeah. Because he was playing with it on accident. But we just don't know, like, what the whole purpose of that was, or...
Yeah, probably to, like you said, protect her when she eventually took Crew away. Because she was gonna leave in the middle of the night and take Crew somewhere else and just leave. Well, let's kind of back off of the deep, sad stuff and let's move to our little game we have.
Okay.
So I figured this podcast is gonna be so dark and sad. I figured we could kind of change the route and do something a little fun. Like the scene of them going to the restaurant and telling jokes, we're going to tell our own jokes. And the first to laugh loses.
Oh my gosh, I am so bad at jokes.
I hope you came prepared.
Oh my gosh. Okay, like dad jokes? Like
whatever jokes to make me laugh. And I like jokes, so...
Do you want to start?
I'll start. All right, knock knock.
Who's there?
Control freak.
Control freak.
Okay,
who?
so this is where you say control freak.
Yeah.
Who?
Control freak who? Wait, I didn't mean to laugh. Wait, hold on.
This is just the beginning round.
Okay.
Okay. That was just test round to kind of get us into the groove of things. So you can't laugh at the next ones.
Okay, I'll try not to. But I don't have any really good jokes.
It's okay. Try your best.
Oh, okay.
This is like when Lowen and Jeremy were at the restaurant and she's like, I don't know any good jokes. And then she told really bad ones. Mm-hmm. So we'll just play that game.
Okay, I'm going to do a joke that Crew did in the book. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so... Why didn't anybody want to play card game in the forest?
I don't remember. Why didn't anybody want to play a card game in the forest? Mm-hmm. No idea.
Because they're all cheetahs. It's so cheesy, but it's so cute. So hard.
I tried so hard not to laugh. Okay. Why don't scientists trust atoms?
Okay, so I feel like you have to be good with, like, science stuff to know this one. Because of molecules?
Ooh, good one. Because they make up everything.
Oh, that's a good one.
Thank you.
What? I'll do one that is like a dad one.
We love to see it.
So they're horrible jokes, but it's like,
No worries. This is a podcast, not stand-up comedy. Don't worry.
No, I'm horrible at jokes. Like, I'm a good friend because I laugh at everything for people, but I'm horrible at telling jokes.
There's no judgment here. If anybody judges Dom for this joke, I will come find you.
Oh my god. Okay.
Go. The pressure's on.
Alright, knock knock.
Who's there?
Moo.
Moo who?
You need to move over. I don't know, I'm so bad at these.
Oh, I love it. Oh, it's so good. That was good.
You do one. You do one.
Okay. What is Forrest Gump's password?
Chocolates.
No.
Life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
That's a long password. I would forget it.
It's auto-saved.
Oh, gotcha. It's the Face ID.
Yeah.
Gotcha. No, it's 1 Forrest 1.
That one's funny.
I think we both just lost.
1 Forrest 1.
1 Forrest 1. Okay, well, I think we both accept defeat on that one because we both laughed.
Yeah, but it was your joke, so technically I feel like you won.
No, I still laughed.
You laughed at your own joke.
It's just that funny.
Do you ever see those memes where it's like me before I even tell my own joke, where the person has oxygen over their face?
You gotta send me that meme.
Oh,
I love it. So yeah, do you have any more jokes?
Classic one.
Alright, let's hear it.
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Boo.
Boo-hoo.
Why are you crying? What's wrong?
It's only a joke.
It's only a joke.
Classic. I love it. We both are just too funny for our own good.
Seriously. We'd make great dads one day.
Oh my gosh, true. So yeah, let's kind of get back into it. We're kind of wrapping up here now. So is there anything in your, your own perspective, your own point of view, your own reading style that you think you would have changed in this book besides, the obvious?
The ending.
The ending, yeah.
I would have liked to know more about, Crew, essentially, because he's not really in the book as often as I would like him to. He's just in the very, intense parts of the book.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to kind of know if they could show, how Crew interacts with Verity, when they're alone. I feel like that would have been really, really good to add into the book.
Yeah, I agree. I think Crew needed to be in it just a little bit more, because sometimes I forget that he's there.
Yeah. Aww.
And I'm like, what is this child running around for?
Right.
I'm like, oh, that's his son.
always popping in when they're about to make out or something.
Right. I mean, that's more believable. Crew would be looking for his dad. He would pop up in random places.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I just put, what we've kind of already said about, the relationship between Verity and Jeremy, and then also Lowen and Jeremy. I would like to see Verity and Jeremy's relationship kind of shrink, and kind of, we're to the point where Jeremy doesn't love her anymore. I want to see more of that. And then I wanted to see, more of Lowen and Jeremy's, where they kind of grow. The scene where you're talking about where they were in the yard looking at the sky. I want more scenes like that. More of the gushy scenes and the cutie scenes. I feel like it would have made the relationship a little bit better than just physical stuff. And then also obviously the murder of Verity. I wanted to see more. It just needed to be more. It just wasn't
there was
enough.
No funeral. There was nothing oh, she died. No one was gonna question it. That's all.
There was just nothing about it besides the fact that, they just made it look like it was, her own fault. She died by accident. And,
So she didn't have any friends besides the two, skeezy friends at the grocery store? And they don't really know, what's going on with her? I don't know.
She didn't have any visitors.
They just threw that in. That was just a filler.
Exactly, that was just a filler, but
It was.
yeah, they didn't, like, no one came to visit her except for the nurses. Like, I don't know. I didn't love that. So yeah, is there any kind of, like, last minute things that you want to talk about that we didn't discuss? Anything that might have crossed your mind?
No, I think we pretty much did it, especially because we told the ending to everybody.
That's okay. They know before even clicking this podcast that, you know, we talk about the endings because, like, this reason here, it's not always good, and I wanted to talk about it, so.
Yeah, I guess for people who are like me and they like to read romance and, like, cheesy novels, this might not be for you.
Yeah, for sure.
This is not, like, that generic, cheesy Hallmark novel.
Yeah, go pick up a Nicholas Sparks book if you want that.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend Safe Haven. That was a good one.
That one's good, too.
All right, so before we head out, I like to do a little rating scale here on the book stop. So it's a little bit different than like a normal rating scale. We kind of make up our own. So I'll go first. I think I would give this book 4 backyard turtles out of 9.
Oh, out of 9?
Yeah.
Why 9? Usually people do 5 or 10.
Hey, this is my podcast. I do what I want.
Do you want me to do out of 9 too?
No, you could do whatever you want.
Okay, I would do like a 7.5 knives.
Oh my gosh.
Out of 10.
All right, that's pretty high rating still.
It's like average 75. If they would have did a better ending, I think it would have been like a 9 or 10.
The ending definitely hurt the scale for sure. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I really had a lot of fun, and
I did too. Thank you.
My neighbors are taking a shower right now. Sorry. Yeah, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great talking about it.
Yeah, I think you're going to be on towards the end of the year, maybe a Christmas special with Dom. If you want to see that, just let me know.
Bye.
Thank you for turning the pages with us this week. If you've enjoyed this episode, show your support on social media. Don't forget to turn on your notifications to get a reminder of the next episode. Thanks again for listening to The Book Stop. Bye!